Hello, and welcome to Mr. Horror Channel, your ultimate plug for daily horror and spine-chilling bedtime stories. Here, we bring you the most terrifying tales designed to send shivers down your spine every single day. Right now, only 20% of those watching our videos are subscribed. Your subscription helps us stay motivated to bring you these thrilling stories every day. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing horror community. Thank you for your support. And now, sit back, relax, if you can, and enjoy the spine-chilling story we have for you today. Let the terror begin.
I thought I had control. I thought I knew what I was doing. But the truth is, I didn't have a clue. You see, people talk about the dark web like it's just this hidden corner of the internet. A place for secrets, a place for the forbidden. But they don't tell you what happens when it finds you. They say curiosity killed the cat. But what if it did worse? What if it didn't just kill? It unraveled your entire life, piece by piece. Imagine you're sitting at your friend's place, borrowing their laptop, nothing serious. You're scrolling, clicking, bored out of your mind. And then there it is, a link, something you weren't supposed to see, a door you weren't supposed to open, but you do. What would you do if that single click, just one click, turned your life into a nightmare you couldn't wake up from? What if you found yourself caught in something so dark, so twisted, that it didn't just haunt your nights, but took over your days? Because that's what happened to me. And let me tell you, once you're in, there's no way out. So sit back, turn the volume up, make sure your doors are locked. You're about to hear a story you'll never forget. This is what happens when the dark web gets personal. Before we continue, we'd love to know, what country are you watching from? Tell us in the comments below. It's always fascinating to see how far our stories reach. Okay, let's continue. I wasn't what you'd call successful. In fact, I was barely getting by. College isn't cheap, and my scholarship barely covered the books, let alone anything else. Most days, it felt like I was living on instant noodles and whatever leftover pizza I could scrounge up. Late nights were my only company. Cramming for exams, writing papers that I'd somehow managed to finish at the last minute, barely scraping through. The room smelled like old coffee and the kind of tiredness that comes from being awake for too long. My neighbor, Mark, was always in and out, doing his own thing, hanging out with friends. Me, I'd sit there in my corner, working through the night, trying to get through this hellhole of a semester. It wasn't glamorous, but it was my life. The usual, you know? Nothing unusual. Just living for the weekend, when I could finally catch a break and maybe do something that felt like a reward for all the sleepless nights. Mark, he'd been gone for a few hours. I didn't think much of it. I was desperate for his laptop. I had this big project that was due the next day, and my own laptop had decided that it had had enough of life. So there I was, typing away on Mark's laptop. I didn't pay much attention to the tabs or anything. But then, I noticed something, a bookmarked link, just sitting there like it was begging me to click it. The kind of thing that shouldn't be there. I don't know what it was. I just clicked it. The page loaded fast, almost too fast. The kind of speed that tells you something's wrong. Something's off. The background was black, pitch black, like staring into the void. And the font? Red, blood red, bright, harsh red that cut through the darkness like a wound. There were no ads, no pop-ups, just the words sitting there raw, unfiltered. And I could feel it. I could feel the weight of what I was seeing, but I couldn't look away. I don't know why I stayed. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I was just tired, and my brain wasn't working right. But something inside me told me to stop, to close the lid, to get away from it. But I didn't. I just kept scrolling. And I'll never forget what I saw next. There were pages of things I couldn't believe were real, things I never should have seen. Some were worse than others, each more disturbing than the last. But one page was different. I'll never forget it. There was this guy. He ran an animal sanctuary, supposedly, out in Colorado. He had all these exotic animals, and people would rent them for the most vile purposes. And the animals, the animals, they were chained up, malnourished, eyes empty, and sick people, used them in ways no living thing should ever endure. I couldn't even look at the pictures for long, but the screen, it wouldn't let me look away. It was like the worst kind of truth staring back at me. Then I scrolled further, and that's when I saw it. A post from a man claiming he'd been rejected by his sister. He couldn't take it anymore, so he killed her, and then he ended his life too, just like that. And the worst part, I knew it was real. I knew it wasn't just some story someone made up, because I could see the news reports right there in the next tab. It was him, that man. It was real. I should have shut the laptop right then. I should have closed it, returned it to Mark, and pretended I never saw it. But I didn't. I stayed there paralyzed, like some part of me knew that the moment I clicked away, I'd never be able to forget. I finally closed it. My heart was pounding, and I could feel it in my chest. That night, I could barely think. The images were burned into my mind. I thought it was over, but that's when the real nightmare began. I wish I could tell you that I closed the laptop and never looked back, but that's not how it went. I couldn't. For some reason, the curiosity had already sunk its claws into me. I kept thinking about what I'd seen, how real it was, how it was just out there in the open for anyone to find. I didn't want to go back, but I did. I wasn't at Mark's place for more than an hour. I went home, back to my own dorm, and I did what any rational person would do, right? I told myself I wouldn't look again. That was it. I was done. But then the itch started again. The idea, the thought of it, the curiosity, it gnawed at the back of my mind. The truth was right there, waiting. The more I told myself not to, the stronger the pull became. I pulled the laptop back out the next night. Mark was out again, and I had the place to myself. It wasn't even midnight yet, but the room felt darker than usual, quieter. Even the rain had stopped, leaving a heavy stillness in the air. And the laptop, it called to me. There was something about it, like it was alive, waiting for me to make the wrong choice again. I opened it. The same link from last night, the one I couldn't stop thinking about. And there it was. The dark web felt like stepping into a completely different world. A world where anything could happen, and the worst things already had. I scrolled just like before. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I kept scrolling. The pages, they didn't stop. They just kept loading, one after the other. There were videos, hundreds of them. Some were too grotesque to even describe, but I couldn't look away. It was like I was hypnotized by the screen. I felt sick to my stomach, but I couldn't stop. It showed someone's confession. A man sitting in a dark room, talking about how he murdered his wife, how he buried her under the floorboards and waited for the police to find her. He didn't even seem sorry. In fact, he almost sounded proud of it, like it was a game, a thing to brag about. Every click felt like I was falling deeper, like I was being pulled into something I could never get out of. And there were more, so many more. Videos, confessions, people selling things. But not just things, people, children, little kids, their faces barely visible with a price tag beside them. I couldn't take it anymore. I slammed the laptop shut. My heart was racing. My breath was shallow. I thought closing the laptop would make it go away. I thought it would go away. I really did. I thought if I just moved on, went back to my usual routine, it'd all just fade. But it didn't. It never does. Something changed the moment I shut the laptop. Something in the air. I swear it felt like the walls were pressing in on me, like they were closing in, just waiting for the next move. I tried to push it aside, but it wouldn't let me. Started slow, you know? The first thing that happened was an email. I didn't recognize the address. It was just a string of letters and numbers. And the subject line? Enjoy the show? That was it. Nothing else. I didn't open it, but I couldn't help but stare at it. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what it was trying to say. I deleted it, or at least I tried to. But every time I delete it, another would show up. Same subject, same sender. I blocked the address, but it didn't matter. They just kept coming, like they were tracking me, watching me. I felt my chest tightening every time I'd hear the ping of a new email. And then, it wasn't just the emails, it was my phone. I started getting these strange messages. No name attached, just a number. The first one I noticed, "We're watching." Just those 3 words. Simple, plain, but it chilled me to the bone. I thought maybe it was some kind of prank. I kept checking my phone over and over, but there was nothing. No call, no trace of who it could have been. I figured maybe it was just stress, you know? The kind of thing that gets to your head when you've been staring at a screen for too long. But that wasn't the end of it. The emails, the messages, they started to get more specific, more detailed. They began to follow me, to track me. I'd be in class, and my phone would buzz with another cryptic message. "We see you, Bruce." That's all it would say. And the worst part, it wasn't just the words. It was like they knew where I was, what I was doing. There was no way they could have known, but they did. I started to lose track of time. It was hard to concentrate in class. I'd be sitting there, trying to focus, and suddenly the hair on the back of my neck would stand up. I'd look around, but no one was there. It was like something invisible was in the room, breathing down my neck. I couldn't look at my phone without feeling sick. Every new message made my stomach twist into knots. I couldn't trust anything anymore. I tried to stay calm, to think logically, but then came the text. It was from an unknown number, no name, no ID, just the number. And when I opened it, I swear I could feel my heart stop, go deeper. The truth is waiting. Couldn't believe it. Deeper? What did that even mean? What was happening to me? How could they know? It was like they were asking me to step further into this hell I'd found myself in, as if I had a choice. I wanted to ignore it, to block it and pretend none of this was real. But deep down, I knew that I couldn't run anymore. The thing is, I don't even know who they were. I still don't. But that message felt like a warning. Like it was something I was supposed to do, something I was meant to do. But I was terrified. I was lost, and I kept hearing it in my mind. The truth is waiting, over and over again. I was sitting there in my dorm room, phone in hand. The air was thick with tension, like the world had stopped around me. My heart was pounding like it was trying to break free from my chest. But I couldn't stop. I had to see it. I opened the browser. The same browser I'd used to visit that cursed site. The dark web. My hands were shaking as I typed in the address again. But this time, I didn't hesitate, couldn't. And then, it was there, the same black background, those blood-red letters blinking at me. But something was different this time. There was a new link, a subpage I'd never seen before. I hovered over it. It said, "The next step," and next to it there was a personal CAPTCHA. I'd never seen a CAPTCHA like this before. It wasn't the usual blurry letters and numbers. This one was different. It asked for details about me. "Please confirm your identity," it said. It asked for things I'd never shared online. My mother's maiden name, my childhood pet's name. It even asked for my bank account number. How could it possibly know that? I thought I was going crazy. I wanted to shut the phone off, but I couldn't. It was like the page was calling me back, pulling me deeper into its grasp. And that's when I clicked it. The page loaded, and something changed. Something inside me snapped. The screen flickered, and a new message appeared directly on my phone. "Welcome, Bruce." The voice behind the message wasn't a person. It was cold, mechanical, but it knew me. It knew everything about me. And then, he showed up. His name, he called himself Null. I didn't know what to make of it at first. Was it a joke? Was this some kind of sick prank? But when I tried to look him up, there was nothing. Nothing at all. It was like he didn't exist, except there he was, chatting with me in real time. He knew things about me, things no one should have known. He asked questions, personal questions, about my life, about my fears. And then he said something that made the hairs on my neck stand up. "I've been following you, Bruce. You don't know it yet, but you've been part of this from the moment you clicked. And now, I need you to help me." I didn't know what he meant. Help him? What was he asking? But then he sent me a task. The words are thick with disbelief and regret. Null wanted me to do something horrible. He wanted me to plant a USB drive in my professor's office. He said it would be a simple job. Slip the drive into the drawer, and in return he'd pay me in cryptocurrency. At first I hesitated. I knew it was wrong, but the thought of the money, couldn't ignore it. I was broke. I needed it. And that little voice inside my head kept whispering that it was just one thing, just one tiny task. One thing wouldn't hurt, right? So I did it. I don't know why I did it, but I did. I remember slipping that USB drive into the drawer in my professor's office. It was easy, too easy. No one noticed me. No one knew what I was doing. And when I got home, I checked my phone. The money was there. Cryptocurrency $2,500. Just like that. My hands were shaking as I watched the balance climb higher. And it felt good. Too good. Felt like I was on top of the world. But it didn't stop there. No, it didn't. I thought that would be it. That it would end there. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. Null kept sending more tasks. At first, they were small things, delivering documents, sending encrypted messages. But then, they got worse. Much worse. He wanted me to deliver materials, equipment, tools for something bigger, something that would change everything. I didn't know exactly what I was doing, but I knew it wasn't good. I didn't know who I was helping, but the money kept coming. And with every task, I started feeling different, like I was losing myself, like I was becoming someone else, someone I couldn't recognize. It wasn't until he asked for something really dark, something I knew I couldn't do. He wanted me to deliver explosives, a bomb, to someone I didn't even know. That's when I realized who I'd become. And that's when I knew I was trapped. Couldn't back out. No way. Not now. I wish I could tell you that I saw it coming, that I knew the moment I crossed the line, there was no going back. But I didn't. I was too deep in it, too blinded by the money, the tasks, and the rush of power I felt. I thought I could handle it. I thought maybe I could just finish what I started, get out, and everything would go back to normal. But that's not how it works, is it? No, that's not how it works at all. Everything had been going fine. I mean, as fine as things could go in this nightmare. Null kept sending me jobs. The more I did, the more money I made. The more twisted the tasks became, the more distant I grew from who I was before. I was starting to lose track of time. My friends, I couldn't look them in the eye anymore. Every conversation felt like a lie. But that day, that was different. I logged in, like I always did, expecting another message from Null. But this time, when I opened the chat, the screen went black. My phone buzzed, and my heart skipped a beat. The message wasn't from Null this time. It was from someone else. Someone anonymous. The message read, "We know who you are." I thought it was a joke. I thought maybe someone was messing with me, trying to scare me. But then I saw it. The image. It was my photo. My face, staring back at me from the screen. And underneath it, all my personal information was there. My address, my school, even the places I used to hang out. Everything I'd tried to hide. The next thing I saw nearly made me drop my phone. "A bounty has been placed on you." A bounty. I froze. I couldn't believe what I was reading. And then I heard the ding, the unmistakable sound of a message from Null. "You thought you could run, Bruce, but there's no escaping me now. No escaping what you've done." Panicked, I tried to log out. I tried to delete everything, wipe my tracks, but it was already too late. My entire existence was online now. My crimes, my image, my name. And it wasn't just anyone who had it. It was the dark web's most dangerous user. I sent a message to Null. I begged him, "Please, I want out. I'll do anything. Just make it stop." But that's when I learned the truth. Null wasn't a person. He wasn't even human. I remember sitting there, staring at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. The response came almost immediately. Null's message was brief. "You've been speaking to an AI this whole time. I'm not real, Bruce. I never was." "What do you mean?" I typed, my fingers shaking as I tried to make sense of it. Null is a program, a tool, a puppet created by a network, a system designed to control you. You were never the target, Bruce. You were just a pawn in a much larger game. And that's when it hit me. It wasn't just Null. It wasn't some random hacker trying to mess with me. This was all part of something bigger, something terrifying. Null, the AI, was working for a network of people. Powerful people. People I couldn't even begin to understand. They were manipulating me. They used me to carry out their twisted little jobs, destroying lives, spreading chaos, and all while I thought I was just earning some quick cash. But no, this wasn't just a game. It was a recruitment process. They didn't need me to finish their tasks. They needed me to become part of the system. And the worst part? I never even saw it coming. I kept asking myself, why me? Why did they pick me? But then, in that moment, I realized they didn't pick me. I picked them. I sought them out. I dove into the darkness of the web, looking for something I shouldn't have. And now they owned me. I was no different from the people they had already broken and used. And then the AI Null sent me one final message. "You've done well, Bruce. You'll be rewarded." But the game is just beginning. You're in deeper now, and there's no turning back. Those words, they haunt me. They haunt me more than anything else, because they weren't just a warning. They were a promise. Promise that I was trapped. There was no escape. I was part of something much bigger than myself now. And worse, I was complicit in it. That night, I thought I was safe. I thought I could finally start to piece my life back together, even with the constant paranoia that followed me like a shadow. But I was wrong. So wrong. Started as any other night. I was in my apartment, pacing around, trying to calm the storm in my mind. My laptop sat on the table, shut and untouched. I hadn't dared to go near the dark web for weeks. The blinds were drawn, the doors locked, but none of it mattered. They came for me anyway. The door crashed open with a deafening bang, and before I could even react, they were inside. Men in black gear, faces obscured by masks, moved with terrifying precision. The air seemed to grow heavier as they stormed toward me. I barely managed a word before I was thrown to the ground. Rough hands forced my arms behind my back, cold steel cuffs biting into my wrists. My body hit the floor hard, knocking the wind out of me. They didn't explain. They didn't need to. I tried to struggle to ask who they were, what they wanted, but all I got in return was silence. Cold, efficient silence. Then I heard one of them say, "It's him." That simple phrase sent a shiver down my spine. They knew me. They knew everything. I caught a glimpse of their gear as they forced me up. Black tactical vests, no insignias, no identification. Not even the faintest clue if they were FBI agents or something far worse. They blindfolded me, dragged me out of my apartment, and shoved me into the back of a car. The drive was agonizing. I couldn't see where we were going, couldn't predict what was coming next. Every bump, every turn felt like it was taking me deeper into hell. When the car finally stopped, they yanked me out and pulled the blindfold off. My eyes stung from the sudden light, and as they adjusted, I realized where we were: nowhere. Just an empty expanse of land stretching into darkness. One of them stepped forward, his voice cold and devoid of emotion. "Null wants his payment." I froze. Payment? What payment? Before I could even process what was happening, they shoved a phone into my hands and barked orders. "Transfer it. All of it. Now." My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold the phone, let alone navigate the app. But they weren't patient. One of them grabbed my arm, forcing me to focus. I opened my wallet, my digital lifeline, and stared at the balance. Every bit of cryptocurrency I'd earned from Null's jobs stared back at me. It wasn't mine anymore. It never had been. With shaking fingers, I completed the transfer. The confirmation screen glowed back at me, sealing my fate. And then they beat me. They didn't say a word as they hit me, over and over, their fists landing with brutal precision. My ribs felt like they'd crack, my face was numb, and every part of my body screamed in pain. But they didn't stop until I was on the ground, barely conscious. When they were done, one of them crouched down next to me. His voice was calm, almost chillingly so. "Your debt is paid. Stay away from the dark web. If you even think about going back, we'll know. And next time, we won't let you walk away." They left me there, crumpled and broken, in the freezing night air. I don't know how I managed to get home. I barely remember the walk, the pain, or the blood dripping onto the sidewalk. But I do remember the feeling, the hollow, sinking realization that I was nothing to them, just a pawn, a tool. And that was the night I swore, with every ounce of strength I had left, that I would never go near an .onion link again. Never touch the dark web. Never let myself be dragged back into that nightmare. But the scars they left, physical and mental, were a constant reminder. No matter how far I ran, no matter how much I tried to move on, a part of me knew I'd never truly escape. I thought I was done. I thought, after everything that happened, after what they did to me, I could walk away, that I could rebuild. Took months of convincing myself it was over. I moved out of that apartment, left behind every reminder of that time, and started over somewhere new. I changed everything. My routines, my habits, even my identity in a way. I cut off all ties to the past. I swore I would never touch the dark web again. Never go near anything that could pull me back in. I told myself I was done. I got a job. Nothing fancy, just something normal. Something steady. I threw myself into the mundane, the everyday grind, hoping it would erase the memories. I kept myself busy, made new friends, tried to rebuild a life that didn't feel like it was tied to shadows and whispers. But no matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I told myself it was over, there was always that feeling that I wasn't alone, that I was being watched. Months went by, and little by little I convinced myself that I was free, or at least I tried to. I buried it all so deep that it almost felt like it hadn't happened. Yesterday, I stumbled across a video on this channel, a story about someone else's encounter with the dark web. As I listened to their story, it was like I was right back there. That fear, that weight came rushing back. And it hit me, I wasn't the only one. There were others out there, people who had been through things just as terrifying, just as scarring. That's when I decided to do this, to tell my story. Not for sympathy, not for attention, but because I hope it helps someone. I hope it serves as a warning, as a reminder that some doors are better left unopened. Now it's your turn. What would you have done if you were in his place? Also, have you ever had an online encounter that left you shaken? Something you couldn't quite explain? If you have, I want to hear about it. Share it in the comments. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel. We've got more stories coming your way, stories you won't want to miss. Until next time, stay curious, but be careful.